Hello. In this video, we will get to know the FDA 21 CFR Part 11 standard and how to develop an application in ADISRA SmartView using this standard. The Food and Drug Administration's FDA 21 CFR Part 11 standard establishes the criteria under which the agency considers electronic records and electronic signatures to be credible and equivalent to handwritten paper records and signatures. To better understand the standard, it is important to clarify what are electronic records and signatures. What is an electronic record? An electronic record is any data that can be saved by electronic means and recovered later. The electronic records are associated with application events. For example, an action triggered by the process operator, pressing a button, changing a slider, or entering a set point manually. What is an electronic signature? An electronic signature is a specific type of electronic record that contains the following information: timestamp, a username, and the meaning of the signature. Its main function is to distinguish the uniqueness of any user operating the SCADA system. The main objective is to guarantee the action's non-repudiation by a system user. For each important event, the electronic signature will be requested, and it will be necessary to enter at least 2 user identification data. These events are recorded in the system event log, known as the Audit Trail. The Audit Trail is the main traceability tool that is used to explore process problems. So if there is an operation failure, it is possible to extract information from the Audit Trail system event log to understand the sequence of events that occurred at the time of failure. The SCADA system performs an important role, combining both process control and audit information. SCADA software cannot state that it complies with FDA 21 CFR Part 11 because the software only provides the tools necessary to allow the developer to create an application that is compliant with the standard. It is significant to understand SCADA system software does not force the developer to build a standard compliant application. Compliance is optional during application development. ADISRA SmartView's main features that allow an application to be developed compliant with the FDA 21 CFR Part 11 standard are listed below. Controlled access to the SCADA application. All SCADA system users are registered with unique and personal passwords. The registered users will be authenticated and responsible for their actions within the SCADA system. The system administrator is able to access user account settings to create new accounts, block users, and deauthorize them. No one, not even the system administrator, has access to any user's password. Automatic user logout. This feature protects the system by blocking access to the application if the user is not active and has not used the system for a period of time. The feature prevents another person from impersonating the last user who logged in without having properly logged off. Occurrence records in Audit Trail. Critical actions are recorded in an encrypted log file within the SCADA system. Critical actions include, but are not limited to, initialization, termination, recording of set point values in equipment, generation of reports, among others. If there is an operation failure, It is possible to extract information from this log to understand the sequence of events that occurred before failure. The SCADA system must have tools that allow the information contained in the files generated by the system to be viewed in a readable format. The visualization can be performed by tablet, graph, report, or other viewable form. All electronic data records, whether from remote units, sensors, or configuration files from the SCADA system, must be stored in an encrypted format so that they cannot be opened in other systems. Please note, the standard does not mention whether electronic records should be stored in a standard database, such as Oracle, SQL Server, or a proprietary format. If used in a standard database, the responsibility of ensuring encryption or database confidentiality is dependent on the database you use and its features. We have reviewed the FDA 21 CFR Part 11 standard, defined an electronic record, an electronic signature, and an audit trail, and the relationship these features have within the SCADA software. Now, we will learn a simple way to develop an application using ADISRA SmartView and these features so the application may be submitted for FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliance. Here we have a simple application developed on ADISRA SmartView. This hypothetical application is responsible for monitoring and controlling the opening and closing of a valve. If the logged-in user wants to change the valve status, he will need to click on the button to open and close the valve. This is a simple application, and at this time, when a user clicks on the button, the action will not generate a log file and will not be required to have an electronic signature because we have not yet implemented the functionality to make this application compliant with the FDA 21 CFR Part 11 standard. So how can we store user actions in a log file and request an electronic signature when an action is taken by the user? So let's begin by opening the ADISRA SmartView development environment. On the top tab, we are going to click on Security. Let's enable the Audit Trail option, and then select the database in which all the electronic records will be stored. After completing those instructions, click on the Graphic tab and add the data grid object. This object is responsible for showing all the electronic records stored in the database. With the data grid object selected, it is possible to see its properties. Please note that the Is Audit option is selected. Therefore, the data grid structure will consist of 5 columns. The columns are username, action, message, comment, and timestamp. Each data grid line will represent an electronic record. If we uncheck the Is Audit option, we can point to a database and a specific table. We can also change the width of each column. Now let's define which users are registered in the system, and then we will create an electronic signature to open or close the valve. Click on the Security tab. Select User and Profile. This screen is used to configure users and the profiles of each user registered on the system. Here we have 3 profile types: the administrator, guest, and operator. After selecting each profile, we can see the privileges. The administrator and operator profiles have the option to enable an electronic signature, and every user associated with these profiles will have all the privileges selected below. In the Local Users tab, we have all the registered users. Each registered user has their name, login, password, and their associated profile. Since the administrator and operator profiles allow for electronic signatures, the admin and operator 1 may enable the electronic signature requirement for registered users. Close this screen and click in Settings to find other user settings. For example, User Logoff, after a predetermined time of being inactive, Block Login, for a predetermined time after a predetermined amount of failed attempts, User Logout, after a predetermined amount of failed electronic signature attempts, password rules such as password must be created with uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters, and a minimum number of characters, expire a user's password after a predetermined amount of days, change password on first login, and do not allow the user to repeat the password used prior to changing. Now we have reached the last stage. We need to configure the actions that will request the user's electronic signature, such as the command for opening and closing the valve. Every time the user clicks on one of these buttons, the system will request the electronic signature and store it in the database, creating the audit trail in the ADISRA SmartView SCADA system. The configuration is very simple. Let's click on the Close button. And in the property list for this object, there is a property called eSign. Let's enable this property, and then type a message that will be recorded in the audit trail. Repeat the setup on the Open button. After enabling the eSign property, let's add a script to both buttons to update the data grid as soon as the electronic signature is confirmed. Now let's run our application. Previously, the user would change the valve state simply by clicking on the command buttons, and the valve status would change. The system did not ask for any confirmation or registration. Now with the new settings, an electronic signature will be requested in order to perform the valve opening and closing action, and this action will be registered in the database. So let us test it. As you can see, the user guessed 1 signing failed because he does not have permission to perform this action and create an electronic signature. Now let's try it with user operator 1, who has permission to perform this action. Congratulations! As you can see, the command was accepted, changing the valve status to open, and an electronic record was generated in the audit trail, containing the user's name, the type of action, which in this case was an electronic signature, the message configured in the button's properties, informing the type of action, a comment, which we did not use, and the timestamp informing when this electronic record was created. If I wanted to add a comment to the signature, I am able to do so. From now on, any user who tries to open or close the valve must electronically sign the action. Please note that the electronic signature can be configured for any function in the system, such as acknowledging a critical alarm. ADISRA SmartView also allows us to create a customized log system using unique functions. Returning to the development environment in the navigation tree, we will go to System Functions Library and then to the SV Security function. Here we have several functions intended for the log system. For example, the audit log function, which has the same functionality as the eSign property. Let's add it to our application. Going back to the valve screen, let's add a command button. Next, let's add a script to the mouse down event on this button. Now I will copy a ready script with the audit log function. Perfect. If the Show eSign window function is true, based on the correct electronic signature, the valve_CMD variable will be true, and line 4 and 5 will be executed. Line 4 will execute the audit log function, containing a message that will be stored in the electronic records, and the valve will switch to true, which means that the valve will be opened. If the electronic signature is not correct, the audit log function will be executed, and a failure message will be stored in the electronic record. With ADISRA SmartView, it is possible to add the required functionality in your software application to comply with the FDA 21 CFR Part 11 standard requirements. And then, if there is an operational failure, you're able to track information within the audit trail to better understand the sequence of events that occurred at the time of failure.